Greetings, free thinkers. Welcome to the Hoggcast. How are you doing today? I hope you're doing fine. I certainly am. Okay, what do we have for you on today's episode? We have for you the latest Jen Psaki press briefing where we've sank to a new low. This comes in light of the unfortunate and terrible situation in Atlanta where 8 people, 6 of which were Asian, or what we in Britain call Oriental. Here, when we say Asian, we mean Arabic, but I appreciate the difference. So for my British viewers, I mean Oriental, Far Eastern. So 8 people were gunned down in this parlour, massage parlour in Atlanta, Georgia. And 6 of them, not all of them, but 6 were Asian. The person who did this was, allegedly done this, was white. And he's been arrested. Now, Jen Psaki was asked about this, and her answer, which we're going to go through, we're going to watch the clip, is just indicative of the situation we find ourselves in these days, because she blames Trump for it, in essence. You're going to see this. Apparently, the blame for this lies on Trump because he referred to the coronavirus as the China virus. However, after we've watched this, I'm going to show you evidence that plenty of mainstream media outlets and people, even from the Democrat aisle, have, over the last year, at varying points, used the same phrases. But it's only bad when Trump does it. So let's get into this clip. If you haven't yet, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and share this video around. That'll help this small little commentary channel grow and fight back against suppression and algorithm lockout. Being commentary channels, we don't get pushed or advertised. We are outside of the partner program at the moment, so if you could share this video around and subscribe, that would really help. Okay, let's go. Okay, so over to Jen Psaki.
He didn't want to make a connection on the motivation of the shooter in Atlanta. But to broaden it out, why does the president think attacks on Asian Americans are increasing in this country? Why does he think that's happening?
Well, he wanted to be very clear because there's an ongoing FBI investigation, right? And he didn't want to attribute motive. There are law enforcement authorities who do that, and it's important to note when the investigation is concluded or not. So that was a bar he was working to respect there. I think there's no question that some of the damaging rhetoric that we saw during the prior administration, blaming, calling COVID, the Wuhan virus or other things, led to, perceptions of the Asian American community that are inaccurate, unfair, have raised, threatening, has elevated threats against Asian Americans. And we're seeing that around the country. That's why even before the horrific events of last night, he felt it was important to raise this issue, elevate it during his first primetime address, why he signed the executive order earlier in his presidency. And he will continue to look for ways to elevate and talk about this issue moving forward.
So let's go back and watch again, because there's some very good points I want to make. I wanted to play it all without opening my mouth, but there was various points in that, and that was only a 1.5 minute long clip. There was various points I just wanted to open my damn mouth, because her statement there was hypocritical, contradictory, inaccurate, and ignorant, and offensive to people's, and when I say people, I mean working class people, the general public, offensive to our intelligence. So let's play again, and I'll tell you what I mean. I'll explain what I mean.
The president said in the Oval Office he didn't want to make a connection on the motivation of the shooter in Atlanta. But to broaden it out, why does the president think attacks on Asian Americans are increasing in this country? Why does he think that's happening?
Well, he wanted to be very clear because there's an ongoing FBI investigation, right? And he didn't want to attribute motive. There are law enforcement authorities who do that.
Well, that's not true, is it? Because you like to attribute motive, particularly people in general, really, on the left, love to attribute motive, especially in situations like this, to everything, right? And it'll always be fed through an intersectional narrative, right? Now, the person who has been arrested was white. Okay, so this is their favourite narrative, which is white person has committed a very heinous crime against numerous people. Numerous people are dead. Not all 8 of them were Asian, only 6. That is, of course, the majority. However, do you know, year on year, which ethnic group is by far the majority of victims when it comes to a person from one group committing very serious crimes against a person of another group? Those people are actually white. The victims are actually white. The majority, if you look at the FBI crime stats, you will see that what the mainstream media tells you and what the crime stats show are very different things. And as for Jen Psaki saying that she and Biden don't want to attribute motive, you do that all the time. And not only that, you do it for not just really bad things like we see here, you'll do it for absurd things. And as I say, it's hypocritical, because then she goes on to give a motive, to assign a motive. She says that because Trump used the phrase like Wuhan virus, and we're going to see that after we've watched this clip, we're going to look at, I'll show you a photo where it has screenshots of all the times that mainstream media have used exactly the same phrase. And you know what? That's probably where Trump got the word from. He probably saw it on the news. Trump always watches the news. Always. So let's continue.
And it's important to note when the investigation is concluded or not. So that was a bar he was working to respect there. I think there's no question that some of the damaging rhetoric that we saw during the prior administration, blaming, calling COVID, the Wuhan virus or other things.
So this is what I'm saying, and as I say, I've already made my point, and we will, after this clip, after I've made my point, we will look at those screenshots of the mainstream media saying the same thing. However, look, this is what I mean, right? There seems to be no standard, because if we apply this standard she's talking about here, the Democrats have, for years now, used a rhetoric such as white privilege, white fragility, America is racist. America is institutionally racist. Institutional racism. And so on, and so on, and so on. So, what is in light of the aforementioned FBI crime statistics, which clearly shows that people that look like me make up the majority of the victims of crimes like this. Okay? That's taking nothing away from the situation that's caused this debate to be had and this video that I'm making now. But can we not, for heaven's sakes, have a single standard? Why is it so hard? She's saying that Trump, using words like Wuhan virus, made this insane guy, whoever he is, go and do allegedly what he did to these poor employees of this parlor that they were at. Well, let's keep that standard. For years now, the Democrats have said America is institutionally racist. White privilege, white fragility. We need reparations by any means necessary. And so on, and so on, and so on. So, let's see some blame be attributed to you when this thing happens. Right? Like it does every single day. Let's continue. Led
to, perceptions of the Asian American community that are inaccurate.
So they're saying about perceptions of the Asian American community. Nobody, and this is me included, blames the Asian American community. Here in Britain, nobody blamed the English Chinese community. Not a single person. Nobody's disrespectful to them. People still go, including me, to buy their lovely, beautiful food. The best food I've ever eaten is Chinese. I love Chinese. I love Chinese sweet and sour sauce. Nobody makes it like they do. Right? And I can remember after this virus hit that people were lining up. This is before they closed down all the restaurants and so on. People were lining up to show their support for the Oriental Chinese people in particular, the Chinese community, by going and paying their hard-earned money to buy delicious Chinese food. So the only people who think there's this great attack by ignorant people that are blaming Chinese people or Oriental people, Asian people in general, this narrative is only coming from the mainstream media and the Democrat Party. Have you ever noticed it always seems to be those two, right? It always seems to be those two marching in lockstep, narrative and rhetoric wise, right? Nobody blames Oriental people for what happened. This is real life. The general public, working class people in particular, on both sides of the pond, live in the real world. We understand that sometimes things happen that are beyond the people's control. And that is whether this was naturally occurring or whether it did escape from a lab in Wuhan. Who knows? Either way, even if it did get out of the lab, nobody's blaming your average person on the street. These things happen in life. Nobody wants them to. Every day, people, unfortunately, including children, get hit by cars and buses and even trains. Nobody wants it to happen, but nobody blames the driver. It happens. Okay?
Fair have raised, threatening, has elevated threats against Asian Americans, and we're seeing that.
What does raised, elevated threats mean? What does that mean? You notice how vague all this stuff is. A raised, elevated threat. What does that mean, really? I get the feeling that they've been just waiting for something like this. I get the feeling that it's the same with what happened on January the 6th. Again, I condemn the actions of those people that did that. They shouldn't have done it. You gave the Democrats exactly what they've wanted for years. But they look out for these things. You notice when things happen on a daily basis that can't be used by them to back up their narrative, nothing's said. Nothing at all. But as soon as something happens that they can use, even against a person who is no longer the president, it seems to be that everything bad that's happening on Joe Biden's watch, well, that's Trump's fault. Everything good happening on Joe Biden's watch, that's down to Joe Biden. Have you noticed that?
Around the country. That's why even before the horrific events of last night, he felt it was important to raise this issue, elevate it during his first primetime address, why he signed the executive order earlier in his presidency, and he will continue to look for ways to elevate and talk about this issue.
All you're going to do is make the Asian American community live in fear. That's all you'll do. I'm sure there are some people in every community, just like there are some in the white community, who are aware to what the games that the mainstream media play and will take no notice and say, look, that was a tragic event, but I'm not going to live my life in fear. But I'm sad to say that the majority of people, even in my own working class community, seem to want, in this day and age, to live in fear, right? All this is going to do is make people live in fear who shouldn't live in fear. They have nothing to fear. Do bad things happen? Yes. Do bad people exist? Yes. In all communities, including my own. But does that mean you have to fear everyone? No, of course not. Anyway, look, let's move on to the screenshots of all of these mainstream media outlets that are using the same phrases. Okay, so here we can have a good selection of mainstream media outlets. We have the BBC News, new, quote, Chinese virus will have infected hundreds. So this is at the beginning. So this is before Trump was saying things like Wuhan virus. So again, where do you think Trump got it from, right? The Associated Press, the Associated Toilet Paper. United Arab Emirates announces the first confirmed case of the new Chinese virus in the Middle East. The Washington Post toilet paper. Travelers at 3 US airports to be screened for new, potentially deadly Chinese virus. Scientific American. The World Health Organization calls for emergency meeting as Chinese virus spreads to healthcare workers. Yeah, I think we know what the World Health Organization was worried about in the early days of the outbreak, which was running defense for the CCP. So there you can see a selection of outlets before Trump. We didn't even call it the novel coronavirus then. We didn't even call it COVID-19. It was just referred to as a new Chinese virus. So these people, the mainstream media, were using these phrases before Trump ever even opened his mouth. His orange mouth. Sorry, I really wanted to say that. I don't know why. So that should show you the duplicitous nature of the people who print all of this ink on toilet paper. So look, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think of this whole thing, the tragic incident in Atlanta. I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't yet, please like the video, subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell, leave a comment below and share it around. There's various buttons down below that will just automatically share it to various social media sites. It only takes a few moments to do that and will help this tiny little teeny weeny channel grow. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.